I feel like everywhere I go, I hear this guy's name, Brandon Turner.
If I look at the low point of my life, and this is I don't know if I've ever actually said this on a podcast ever, told this story. I was working at Cold Stone Creamery, scooping ice cream. I had no money. I would get up early and go to like the gym or go play racquetball or whatever, and it was always foggy, always incredibly foggy, where you could not see 50 feet in front of your car, maybe even 30 feet in front of your car. Just it was just dense fog, right? Yeah. So you have two options. You can pull over to the side of the road and wait for the fog to clear, or you can just keep moving through the fog, because surrounding your car is this zone of clarity, and it moves with you as you go, right? Yeah. So you cannot see a mile down the road that there's a deer in the road or a rock or a road construction. You can't see any of that. You trust that the road's gonna be okay. Yeah. You're gonna be fine, but you don't stop moving. And so whenever I talk to, especially young people who are like, they're trying to think a mile down the road, and they're like, well, I can't see everything down there. They can't do that. You can't see that. Yeah. What can you see? What is your zone of clarity?
I feel like everywhere I go, I hear this guy's name, Brandon Turner. It doesn't matter where I go.
Is that how you hear it on the street?
It is. I didn't know he was from Coeur d'Alene, or that he had a home here, and that he was in our marketplace till more recently. So this is really cool. I followed him for a long time. I know Brandon's a champion. You guys have probably heard him out there, but if you haven't, this is a guy that I look up to and I respect. He gives me a template for how I want to live my life, especially as it comes to real estate and the power of investing. Here's someone with over 10,600 units, rental units in his portfolio. He's a best-selling author. Started a podcast, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, that became almost, if not the number one real estate podcast. And definitely top 10, but at some point was definitely number one in the world for real estate podcasts. This is a multifamily legend here that we're sitting in front of us. And he has $1 billion in assets under management. Now, 350 million of that, you guys, just for who's listening, came from regular people, not institutions. And there's something really special about that. And the man behind that type of movement is someone you want to get inside their head. So I'm really excited for this. This is an incredible human. But where we like to go with Man on the Mission, I mean, I know you're mission driven, and I know we're going to end up there, but before you can get there, you really have to talk about the depths of hell. The best stories always come out of the darkest circumstances, and not always is that necessarily true, but there's always a version of yourself that is not what's sitting here today. And we want to go to that weak spot in your life when you looked in the mirror and it's not the Brandon that we see today. Like, what does that Brandon look like? That's where we really start, and we try to connect the dots to mission. So if we were going to take you back to the Brandon, and for all of you out there, go straight to the darkest place in your life. Remember what that felt like. Feel it, live it, breathe it. Put yourself in his shoes right now where he's going. He's going to take you to the Brandon where there was doubt, self-doubt, there was worry, there was fear, there was all these things that sort of trap most people in life, and they stay in this safety bubble, and maybe even worse. So I'm excited to hear what you say.
Oh,
let's do
thanks,
it.
Man.
No pressure.
No pressure. All right.
No pressure.
Thanks for having me, guys. All right. So it begins when I got my finger cut off. I'm just kidding. No, it doesn't. I'm not that dark.
10 fingers.
I did just interview a guy, though, that his mom cut his finger off when he was a baby.
Deliberately?
Deliberately, severe abuse and trauma. Anyway, that was
man.
I'll introduce you to that guy. You should interview him on your show. He was phenomenal.
Deeply tragic.
Yeah. His name's Michael Unbroken. Legit, dude. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not that bad. I've had a pretty decent life. We grew up in the Midwest, obviously, and dad was a meat cutter, all that. But when I want to go to if I look at the low point of my life, and this is I don't know if I've ever actually said this on a podcast ever, told this story. I rented this crappy little 4-bedroom apartment out in Olympia, Washington, which was my future wife, my girlfriend at the time. She lived nearby, and so I wanted to get closer to her. We had met in college, and so I rent this. I'm like 21 years old. I rent this crappy 4-bedroom apartment. And I rented out all 4 of the bedrooms to just random dudes because I had so little money. I was working at Cold Stone Creamery, scooping ice cream. Yeah. I had no money. And so I rented out all the bedrooms, and I just lived on the couch, this crappy, Goodwill couch. And that's where I slept for most of the year, between that and sleeping in my car, just because it was easier. I after Cold Stone, about halfway through that year, I went and got a job overnight at a place. And so I would get up in the morning from there, and I would go and drive my wife to work, sleep in the car all day while she worked, and then I would, girlfriend, but sleep in the car all day, a little back. I mean, I'm 6'5", so I'm sleeping in the back of this little tiny Nissan Altima. And, I'd have lunch with her. I'd wake up for lunch and go back to sleep. Anyway, that whole year. That was a rough year. But I remember this thing would happen to me all the time. And I don't know what it was. But I would dream every night or whatever day. I would dream. And in the dream, I had this incredible life. Something very cool was happening in the dream. And I had kids and I had money and I had all this cool stuff. And then as I would wake up from the dream, that ever happened to you where you're in a dream and like you slowly start to come to and you realize.
That's like the key moment.
Yeah. It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, I don't have that.
No, right.
I don't have that. Wait, I'm not even married. I don't have kids. Yeah. I'm making $8 an hour scooping ice cream. And all of a sudden, like reality would come flooding back in and I would be the most depressed person that like for hours. And I couldn't work out of it for hours. And it happened almost every single night where I'd have these dreams of something great in my life. And I may have had actual depression back then. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Your
never
sleep
got
was
looked
crappy.
at. My sleep was really crappy.
Sure.
Living on the couch. I remember thinking like, this is really rough.
Yeah.
That said, two things about that. Number one, I'm halfway convinced that what I was dreaming about was the life that I'm living today. And I'm not saying my life is perfect in any way, but what I mean by that is I wonder, again, this is crazy talk, but I wonder if God gave a vision of my future to drive my ambition to get to the kind of man that I need to become, right?
Wow, give me tingles, man.
Yeah, it might have been.
I've always thought like the best stories in life, those Ragnar stories, like people see it here long before they see it here.
Dude, one of my favorite stories actually is Roy Disney and Walt Disney, right? So Walt Disney dies just a few months before they opened up one of the, I think it was Disney World, Florida, or one of the parks, but he dies right before that. And a reporter goes to Roy Disney and they're talking. He's like, isn't it so sad that Walt wasn't here to see this? And he said, no, man. We're here today because Walt saw this.
It's so good.
I love that idea. Yeah, the so vision. Good. Like he saw something there. So yeah, I think at that time I was getting maybe it wasn't actually a vision of my future, but when I think about back to what that was, I had kids, I had some money, I had a business, I had friends, I had
freedom.
I had freedom. That's what it was, and I was not free back then. I was just struggling then, and at the same time, it almost foreshadowed what I would later get into, because this is before I ever got into real estate, but I rented a 4-bedroom apartment and I rented out all 4 bedrooms and I got to live for free.
Enterprising nature.
That idea. Today I call it house hacking. So you buy a duplex and then rent out one of the units, live in the other one.
Easiest way to start.
It's one of my, it's the easiest way for any new investor to get people to get into real estate, house hack. It's the easiest thing. But I was house hacking. So it was like a foreshadowing what would become sacrifice in the moment for greater gains later. And when you can eliminate your housing payment, which is the number one expense most people have in life, is the cost of housing, whether it's rent or a mortgage, you can eliminate that entirely.
So good.
Now you can dump all your extra money into investments or into something, a business or into whatever, and it'll change your life. And so it was indeed foreshadowing.
Delayed gratification. That might be the superpower of the wealthy, is that they understood this at an early age and they kept compounding that thought over and over and over again. Delayed gratification.
Yeah.
Delayed gratification.
We had
so true.
Just even the ingenuity, like you take 100 23-year-olds, 1 in 100 is going to sleep on the couch. Like to take like, I've heard some of your stuff where you talk about like, you take a look at your real estate, what's a different use of this, or what's a different, how can I have an enterprising where do I see opportunity in something that others don't?
I connect this dot to 98. There was a study done by the Wealth Research Group that 98% of people will die without achieving their dreams. To me, there's a representation that you'll never get near your fullest potential. And I'm just convinced two things. To get near your fullest potential, first you have to tackle the whole concept of understanding financial freedom that frees you up to go after the real passion in your life and the real dreams in your life. You know what I mean? So like to get close to that version of yourself, it requires you to really figure that out. But then it's impact. Like the greatest version of yourself is stepping in the light. They're not afraid of what people think. They don't give a shit. They step out in front of it and they fucking bleed and they pour their heart and soul into the communities. They serve, and they affect millions of lives. And like, that's why I love these conversations around like world leaders and world changers like yourself. These are people that embody all that. So dig deep and listen and read between the lines and what Brandon's saying right here. Like anybody can do this. Like I always thought this, you must be born this way. What a cop-out thought, by the way, that the masses are always thinking. And again, I was trapped in that myself. I thought Ed Milet, he must just be this way. I didn't realize that all the insecurity that he had and all the self-doubt he had to fight through, just like I'm going to have to fight through, until I got to look under the hood and I started working closely with him. And that's the beauty of proximity, the power of being in the same room with someone. It just lets you know there are other humans just like you with the same vulnerabilities, the same insecurities. They bleed just the fucking same. And that's powerful. So this is a good story for sure. What a beautiful start.
If I could ask you a question, like sometimes when I coach like a young person, they can only see so far out.
Yeah.
Like, and it's almost like, it's better to have some aim, like 12 months out, and just slay that and stand on the peak of that accomplishment before you cast another one. Like, what did you start aiming at that time of your life? Like what, at that low,
you figured out delayed gratification.
Yeah. What
obviously.
spark? What kind of?
But then,
where did the spark go? Like, what was your next? Was it just,
I tell this story often, or this analogy often, but I love this picture. I used to live in the Pacific Northwest, right out in near Olympia, Washington, Aberdeen, and I would get up early and go to like the gym or go play racquetball or whatever, and it was always foggy, always incredibly foggy, where you could not see 50 feet in front of your car, maybe even 30 feet in front of your car. It was just dense fog, right? Yeah. And so anybody who's driven through fog, I'm sure you've driven through fog before, right? You have that. It's terrible. Can't see 50 feet in front of me. Sure. So you have two options. You can pull over to the side of the road and wait for the fog to clear, or you can just keep moving through the fog, because surrounding your car is this zone of clarity, and it moves with you as you go, right? So you cannot see a mile down the road that there's a deer in the road or a rock or a road construction. You can't see any of that. You trust that the road's going to be okay. Yeah. You're going to be fine, and you be vigilant, but you don't stop moving. And so whenever I talk to especially young people who are like, they're trying to think a mile down the road, and they're like, well, I can't see everything down there. Do that. You can't see that. Yeah. What can you see? What is your zone of clarity that's right in front of you? Yeah. And say, I'm just going to move to that. I'm going to keep moving. Even if I just slow down a little bit, that's okay. Yeah. So if I look back on my phase, that phase of my life, I didn't know where I was headed. I assumed I'd probably go to law school because my father wanted me to be a lawyer. My dad would always say, you could be a lawyer, that's a thing. I got a degree in history. I graduated college with a degree in history, and you can't do anything with that, but like go to law school or be a librarian. And I didn't want to be
a broke philosopher.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to law school. So that's just the zone of clarity. That's all I could see was go to law school, and which is fine. I don't regret this choice at all. So I started studying for the LSAT, which is a test, and I studied really hard for 4 or 5, 6 months. I then took the test, and I scored well. I did really well on it, but not well enough to get into Harvard. And I said to myself, like, now maybe I could have, but as a white kid from the Midwest, with the score I had, and that's how they base you can look at the data on colleges. Yeah, if you're a white person from the Midwest, because there's a lot of smart white kids from the Midwest, and they distribute it across both race and geographic location, the chance of me getting into Harvard, Stanford, Yale, one of the big ones, was very, very low. It was like 20%. And so here's an interesting factoid about my personality. I never applied. I never applied for law school because I was too afraid of getting rejected. And I don't regret that choice, but it shows a pattern in my life of something I have struggled with since I was a child, and I still struggle with today, is that when I'm not sure I'm going to win, I oftentimes don't play.
Oh, that's good.
And it's not something I necessarily like. Now, it has worked in my favor. Like the law school thing worked out really well. In fact, because of that, I ended up instead, during that time while I was studying, I actually bought a house. This was 2007, right? So 2007, if you had a pulse and you had any job, or you could say you had a job, you didn't need a job, you say you had a job, they'd like, here's a mortgage, right? So I bought this crappy house. This is after the Cold Stone Creamery days. I then bought this just crappy 4-bedroom house. And again, I rented out all the bedrooms as I'm studying for law school. And I remember going to Home Depot, picking up that book, 1, 2, 3 Home Improvement, I think it's called. And or Home Improvement 1, 2, 3. And I was like, okay, well, how do I paint? And I'm like, well, I guess I do this. And I learned how to paint, right? And I'm like, well, how do I change a water heater? And I went and learned that. And I just started fixing the house up. And I thought, this is actually kind of fun. This is way more fun to do this than it would be to go to law school. Yeah. So I ended up deciding against law school because I found something else. And again, the personality hole in me that doesn't want to try if I can't win, that still exists. And so I don't want to like say that I'm glad that I have that. However, that zone of clarity, it changed. All of a sudden there was a new thing in the road. There was a fork in the road. And I got to that fork and I said, well, I could keep going on this path, or this thing looks a lot more fun. So I actually ended up selling that house a year after I bought it, and I made $25,000 selling that house. And I was like, hot dog, this is a way to make, this is more money than lawyers make their first year a lot of times.
Seriously.
And so I jumped into real estate, and I remember calling my parents, and I called my dad and I said, hey, I'm not going to go to law school. I'm going to be a real estate investor. And
That's amazing.
Yeah, I think his words were, you're crazy. That's a terrible idea. You're going to go broke. And he's just, I mean, I love my dad. He's just looking out for me and he wants what's best for his kids, right? But he's like, and obviously the odds of me succeeding the way that I did with real estate, nobody could have predicted.
You're a rare breed.
Yeah, I'm a rare breed, and it was a rare time. I got in at a good time. But he said, what are you going to do if tenants don't pay rent? If you own rental properties, he's like, uncle this and my buddy this, they all lost money in real estate, which everyone's got the story of their uncle losing their shirt in real estate. And I mean, I'm sure you guys have had people tell you shouldn't do something because of some example in their life, right?
100%.
Right? And because people, they are going to give you advice based on their perspective. And they want you then to adopt that perspective. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. We have to be very careful about the perspectives and the advice we take. Yes. And so my dad says, hey, you shouldn't do it. What are you going to do? So then again, now I've got a new zone of clarity. I'm like, okay, now I got another fork in the road. I could go back then to law school, reverse and go do that. Or I could ask, well, is that actually true? Is that perspective a true perspective? The advice that was given from a mentor, from a father, from whatever, is that a true perspective? So I went and Googled. I think maybe it wasn't, but it might have been pre-Google. It might have been Dogpile. Do you remember Dogpile? No. That was like pre-Google. No. Anyway, I searched what to do when tenants don't pay rent. And I find this big, long article on a little tiny website called BiggerPockets. And it was like this little website.
No way.
I found this article and it was like this person just wrote, a random person for free on the internet wrote what to do when tenants don't pay rent. And it was phenomenal. And it was really simple. It was like, give them a 3-day notice. And
basic psychology of a secret.
Knock on the door.
Yep. And what blew my mind in that moment and that changed my life forever is because I saw that there were answers to this negative perspective, and I had a choice on what perspective I was going to internalize. Exactly. And so I chose to believe a perspective of somebody who was actually a real estate investor who had been doing it for many, many years. So if Ed Milet gives me advice on how to do a podcast, I'm going to listen. It doesn't mean I'm going to 100% take everything he said, but I'm going to very much listen to it. If my mom gives me advice on a podcast on how to do it better because she's heard a podcast before, I'm going to give it a lot less credibility. And so I chose to get into real estate because of that article. And it's was kind of a full circle moment years later when we launched the BiggerPockets podcast.
That's amazing.
It just reminds me of, I don't know why, but man in the arena. That's one of my favorite quotes ever. But I always try to be in proximity to people that are in an arena. They're in the fight. They're in the game. They're in the batter's box. Like, that's who I want to absorb and take. I don't want the critic on the sideline who's never done it, who's not in it, who's not bleeding in real time. But
that quote hanging up in my office and in my house here in Coeur d'Alene. I like it so much.
I give that quote away everywhere I go.
I put it in my. When I have a great day,
I'll
just smile and tell my wife, whoever I'm around at the end of the day, I was in the arena today. Like, and you're at peace. Yeah. Like whether the outcomes or the uncertainties or however things are unfolding, I feel like
I do too.
Peace.
I feel like I'm serving.
I'm really
God
present to my kids
being in the arena. Like that is the fullest way for me to answer the pain and the fear of death is just by knowing I'm in the arena, leaving it all on the table. Like in the whole concept of taking risk and not playing small and maxing out what's possible every single day. Well, for me, I need systems and processes to push me forward even amidst chaos and bad days. It's the systems and processes where I'm always extracting gold. I'm always playing a chess game. And so it allows bad emotions to fall away and I only absorb the good. But again, not so many people are not intentional with how they see the world, how they see their thoughts. And I thought, just in my opinion, it was entrepreneurship that gave me all the gifts of the mindset that I absorbed, because they don't teach this in school.
They don't.
They really actually teach you the opposite of the things that I hold most dear. Like if you were going to say what are the 10 most important things in the world to you, none of the things that are dear to my heart and the things that I preach and I live as part of my identity are from school. Every single one of them are the advice that I would give comes from being in the arena.
The only thing I got in school was a wife. Like I met my wife. That was it.
There's blessings for that. I have that sparks a question. So like, we love to ask the high, low questions. The low questions you got into a little bit. On the high questions, especially when it's clear you're very grateful. You seem to hold it really humble. You like the freedom you have now.
For sure.
But it's like when the fires of necessity stop burning at your feet, and
it's easy to
now you have like a new like it's a deeper. Not that it's not there previous. All work's honorable. Whatever your financial picture, you're all
100%.
work's honorable. But I'm really intrigued by like, we have to be a steward of the opportunities, the gifts we've been given. And so you're at 38, you have 2 children, you have tons of life energy. You're barely in the beginning of midlife. Like, I really want to know, like, what is most dear to you? Like, what is your spirit restless about in terms of, one thing I love partnering as an example with Eric is he's obsessed. He really wants to impact. Like, there's a restlessness about him, and I know deep in his spirit it matters deeply. And that would be a podcast for him to deepen that. But like for you, like, what is most dear to you, Brandon? Like, now standing on the summit you are now, what are you restless about? In that good kind of like wrestle with God kind of way, you know?
Yeah, I'll answer that in a couple ways. First of all, there's a change happening in my life right now. I mean, this is really recent, over the last couple of weeks. And I'm gonna pull back a story, a biblical story. So King David, everyone's heard of David and Goliath. All right, so David in the Bible, he fights Goliath, he wins all these battles, he ends up becoming king, he ends up taking over and just killing it in every way. He's just dominating life. And then there's this great line that says, in the spring, when kings and armies go off to war, David was at his palace in Jerusalem. And his army is off at war, and David is at his palace in Jerusalem, and he's sitting there hanging out on his palace. And then he looks over, and that's when he sees naked woman Bathsheba or whatever, right? Bathing on a rooftop. Ends up sleeping with her, getting her pregnant, end up killing her husband to hide it. And his life just takes this turn and just goes downhill.
Yeah, the fall,
Yep, why did he fall? Because his army was off at war, and he was at his palace in Jerusalem. He was resting on his laurels. And it became clear to me the last few weeks. I was sitting there journaling one day, and I said, am I sitting on my palace right now? I mean, I'm doing a lot of stuff. It's like I'm not working. My army's very much out there working. We're buying real estate left and right. We got this huge, nonprofit charity thing going. But am I fighting? Am I in the battle right now? Am I in the arena?
That's profound.
And I was like, I'm not. I'm operating at about 40%.
Wow.
I'm not operating at 0%, but I'm operating at about 40%.
Yeah.
And so what right now near and dear to my heart is, what does Brandon turn out 100% capable of? Because I don't remember.
That's beautiful.
Dude.
I don't remember.
That's a real problem on the road to the greatest version of you. That's what this man is sitting here for. Actually, this actually just represents the one guy we're trying to get to.
Shared human nature.
Like, when we die, we hope we're going to get to as close as that person as possible. And it requires you to kill old versions of yourself constantly. You have to murder your old self over and over again. You're always evolving. But I love high achieving people, because you can tell, like, for the average listener out there, like, here's a person that is sitting on like so much gold that is dissatisfied. I'm at 40%.
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you mean you're not 40%? Like, you're firing all cylinders, bro, from all outward appearances. But no, you don't get it. Like, this is the thing that's hard to teach. You can't explain it, and you don't know it if you haven't been in the fires, and if you don't make impact in the greatest version. So many people, like, they get trapped in this safety bubble. And it doesn't matter what level you get to, there's always room for improvement. And like, that's the game. It literally is the game. It's the game that keeps high achievers going. They enjoy the deconstruction of their souls and the rebuilding of it. And that is like, I mean, what more beautiful way to live a life than that? For me, I look at it like this. I climb the mountain, I get to the top, and I get to ski down it. But when I ski down it, and you think you should be enjoying it, at some point I sort of get to the bottom of the momentum of that slope, and I start getting really restless. And it's time to climb again. Like, when times are good, sandy beaches, like, they only last so long with the little umbrella in the drink. I can't do it. Like, I freak the fuck out.
I can't even do it. Whenever I'm around a country club and golfers and the people, I have this like.
It's like, that's death to me.
That means no disrespect if you're golfing and you're drinking. I just and God bless people. A lot of people coast for decades. God bless you, golf.
People do. They coast for decades.
No, seriously. There's a whole. It's hard to be a human being. But so here's my question: like, what inkling? Since you're honest, like the last 2 or 3 weeks. What? And let me frame this. So if when I'm coaching a 35 and under, The developmental thing is, can I? And if they're answering that powerfully, they're not restless. But they're not, no disrespect to 35 and under, it's not super deep inquiries. It's like, can I get married? Can I start a family? Can I start a business? 35 to 55, it's like, shoot, okay. What is most dear to me? And to what degree is everything I'm being forwarding that love or that faith? Like, what are your inklings? What's that 60% for you?
Yeah. Couple things. I heard Tim Tebow recently say, and maybe we'll get to that part of the story, Tim kind of spurred the fourth phase of my life. If I look at my life in phases, I'll go, phase one was like me and Heather, my wife, building like this little rental portfolio in Western Washington in the rain. Yeah. Like that was like the first phase. Yeah, and it was just raining 300 days a year. Exactly. So it was terrible. So that was like, I mean, it was fun. We had some great memories. That was phase one. Phase two was like the BiggerPockets years where I built the podcast and the company, and they're huge today. And the show's 100 million downloads, all that stuff. Like, amazing. And the phases, they kind of, they overlap. So phase one was personal real estate. Phase two was BiggerPockets, the internet and marketing world. Phase three was when I realized that I wanted to build something bigger. So I started a commercial real estate company. We buy apartments, mobile home parks, self-storage. Right. And that, that's where we bought $1 billion almost worth of real estate. That was phase three. Tim Tebow started phase four for me. And I'm still in phase three right now. But phase four started when I heard Tim at a mastermind say, I don't want to enter heaven well rested. I don't want to enter heaven well rested.
That's good.
And I'm like, I don't want to be fat and comfortable and rest the last half of my life like a lot of, I don't want to say just men, but maybe a lot of men do. There's this epidemic where men get in their 30s and they may go one of two ways, but a lot of it is, I'm just going to start, back in the day, it was like watching the news and reading the newspaper every day and, drinking my beer. And, I did the hard part. I built my
survival's
family.
handled.
Yep. Survival's handled. So now I'm going to lean back and I'm gonna stay at my palace and watch girls bathe on the rooftop next to me.
Literally, man.
Yeah. And like, that's what they literally end up doing for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So I am currently obsessed with trying to figure out what does entering heaven out of breath look like.
Yeah. So good.
So that's what I'm working on.
What does entering heaven out of breath look like?
I love that. So many
what
people
does entering heaven out of breath look like?
We'll never understand this sentiment, though. That's what's crazy to me is when you just speak to humanity and the psychology of people and the instincts, there's a reason. Comfort is a hell of a drug. Yeah. It really traps you. So it's just such a good insight to the mindset of someone that achieves so much. Like, it's not money. It has nothing to do with that. That's not what drives any of us. No, anyone that is on a warpath, money is sort of the byproduct of a lot of good systems and processes, but really it's the mindset behind the person that can make you really the financial free that everyone thinks they want, but that's not what it is. It has really nothing to do with that. And this is a really good peek under the hood there for sure. This is what Leonardo da Vinci said on his deathbed. And this is profound. I think it really ties and it connects the dots to what we're talking about here. Sort of the mindset behind the people that leave so many beautiful marks on the world. Just to give you a look here. So, I've offended God and mankind by doing so little with my life. Leonardo da Vinci on his deathbed.
That's so good.
Think about that. One of the best creators of art in the world. Yeah. Think about everything that he left humanity with. And he knew, still feels like he's offended God by not doing enough.
And there's a difference here too. There's holding yourself to a hypothetical ideal and then being at peace about your fallibility, your humanity, your powerlessness.
Because you don't want to. You don't want to be down on yourself all the time because I'm an idiot because I'm not doing enough. No. But you know how I like to look at this. I look at my kids. Let's say I take Rosie, who's 7 years old, and I say, I absolutely love Rosie where she's at right now. She's the perfect age, right? Just like when your kid's 2, they're perfect. They're 3, they're perfect. 4, they're perfect. They're perfect. I love everything about her. Aww. I don't want her to stay that way. I want her to grow and I want her to exceed and I want her to excel at everything she does. And so I can hold both those truths, that she is 100% perfect right here, now. And she's nowhere near what she's capable of.
Relative to where she's heading.
Yep. Yeah. So I can hold those two thoughts. And if I can hold those for Rosie and I can hold them for Wilder, why can't I hold them for myself? Yourself, right? Can I say I am 100% happy with where I am right now, but I am nowhere near where I'm going? And like you said earlier, people, I think, in the world have a hard time understanding that. When they look at somebody like, well, you already have all this stuff. Why do you need more? Why do you want more stuff? It's because I'm not comparing myself to anybody else. I'm comparing myself to who I could become.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's That's what I'm trying to
Ed has a similar take that I think resonates, and I've kind of adopted it too, because I like to explain the restlessness inside me in a way that I can accept. But he calls it blissful dissatisfaction. We want to be enjoying the pursuit of things. And for me, it's the game. And a lot of times, even with like billionaires, like people I've spent a lot of time with that are at the really top of the financial food chain, it's just the game that they're playing. They love it so much that they wouldn't rather play anything else. They wouldn't rather like do life any other way because they have so much fun doing it. And
they're really delighting in it.
What I look at, what I see in you is someone that loves what they do. And I always challenge people: do you love what you do? Do you love Monday mornings? I fucking love Monday mornings because it's a week of possibilities, and it's when the normal people like come back to the to the surface. It's like, what a wasted life if you hate Mondays. Like, oh my God, like there's so many Mondays in your life. Why would you choose to do something that you hate? People can't figure out how to break through the slavery of their life that is just trapping them. And before you can get it here, you have to unleash the slavery that's trapping you up here. It has to happen here first before it can manufacture in actual physicality like type way. Because I am teeming on Mondays. Like actually, like there's no such thing as a weekend for me. I'm a 7-day human, and I am where I am. Balance is a very obscure term for me. I don't even like talking about it because it's kind of upsetting when people, because it's the thing that holds most people back is thinking they need balance. I am where I am, and I'm present where I'm present, and that just is a beautiful way to operate.
We were talking just yesterday, like we had a bunch of meetings. We couldn't even remember it. Like we're both, because we're so present to the day. We were like, who did we meet with yesterday?
Like 30 people too.
Literally
we could not remember one person.
Two adults. No, we had 6 people in the morning. Who were they? And I'm like, Eric, I don't know, man. I'm just here now with you, and we're going here now.
That's awesome.
What would I have a question for you. Like, I
love these separator questions. Like, what is the separator? There's countless separators.
That was a litmus test to me. Like, it's 2 men who are habituated to aim this way and not dwell on. Not that I'm far from perfect, but. What's your wife's first name?
Heather.
What would Heather, if she, I'm just still, I want to dig a little bit, like, because you're obviously you have a lot of gifts and affinities and temperamental tendencies and all those things. Like, what would Heather say your 60% looks like? If she were to go, my bet would be if Brandon really doubled down on what he loves most, he'd probably express it in this manner or take it here. What is that?
Yeah, I think, when I said like that, I'm operating at 40%, right? And I see that in multiple areas of my life. So my wife would probably answer that question of she would do it from the relational standpoint. I tend to, and I have tended to look at, because I'm in a hard phase, right? Like, I don't know, you guys kids?
Yeah. Right? I have 4 kids, 10 and under.
Okay, so you're in the phase.
I'm in the thick of it.
It's hard, right?
It is.
So I tend to fall into this camp of like, how do I make it easier on myself? And then how do I survive till the kids go to bed? And so I can go to bed. It was almost like a survival game versus an enjoyment. So what Heather would say, because we've talked about this, is like the 60% is going from survival to thriving, or surviving to thriving. In other words, like, how can I enjoy every minute with the kids? Like, I'm not saying I want to be 100% in business all the time. Like, I love my family. So what does 100% Brandon look like when dealing with the kids? And I'm not on my phone. I'm not scrolling Instagram or TikTok. I'm delighting in their presence.
You're there.
And I'm instructing them, and I'm helping them. There are things that I have, like, I did some journaling after that. I was in Vegas and I had like 5 hours to kill. So I was just journaling, and this is when all this kind of really poured onto me that I've been living Liz's way. And I said, I have let down my daughter in so many ways because of that. Well, it's like, and I'll give you and this is kind of maybe, a TMI thing, but parents will get this. Like, Rosie's 7 and she still wets the bed. I can fix that. There are training. I could make sure at 5 o'clock, no more water. There's like this pad. We bought this pad for her that goes on her bed, and an alarm clock goes off when she does it. And it's like 98% guaranteed to work. I bought that 12 months ago. I haven't taken it out of the package.
An honest thing.
That is not Rosie's fault. That is Brandon playing 40% with my daughter. And I don't want to be a 40% dad with my kids. They deserve 100% of dad. And so if that's how I operate with Rosie, and that's how I operate with Wilder, how am I treating my wife? Same way. Am I treating her at 40%? So I have been treating my wife at 40%. When I told her this, when I sat down, I was like, hey, I am sorry. Like, my journaling, actually, I titled it My Confession.
I love it.
And it started with, I have been operating at 40%. I am a total piece of shit. It's how I titled it. And I was like, I need to be really, really honest with myself right now.
I think the best way to combat this, because I think you're going to resonate with a million people instantly. You resonate with everyone in this room, right? Producer, I guarantee you just do. It's such a human thing to procrastinate, to push things off that probably aren't that important, but they actually mean so much more than we'll ever give any validity to. But the only way to really fix this is to constantly be around this conversation.
I agree.
You have to be around other people that can pull this out of you so you can go apply it, because it's so easy to be fallible and to become lazy and step back. This is a big one for me, and it's something a lot of my curriculum that I preach is you have to create the systems and processes of your life. Because no one's perfect, but the systems and processes will keep you accountable. And then, so you have to set up systems, and there's no better system to make sure that this conversation carries on every week. Who you surround yourself, what environment you're in, what kind of friends you have, or everything. If you're around friends that are lazy pieces of shit, like most likely you're going to be lazy pieces of shit. I said this morning. If you want to be a shark, you got to hang around sharks. If you want to be a chipmunk, and you're hanging around sharks, inadvertently, the sharks are going to gobble you up, and you're not going to be chipmunk anymore. They'll just kill you. Or you're going to adapt, and you're going to be able to swim with them. But you can't be a shark and try to be a chipmunk. You can't be a chipmunk and try to be a shark. Like, you have to really find the people that resonate with what you want to be, because if not, you'll sort of adapt the tendencies of the people around you. So for me, the biggest distinction is I want solid fucking humans in my life. I want people that challenge me every day, that stretch what's possible in my mind, that make it possible. And oftentimes there's some sort of ticket price that you have to pay. Unfortunately, most people aren't willing to pay the types of ticket prices it needs, because you have to be such a high value human. You have to have so much output to attract people that are much greater than you, because they're busy and the whole world is demanding their services themselves. So I'm so mindful about how important it is to be this midget perched on the shoulder of a giant. And the giant for me is not anything financial. That may be one piece for this domain, but I want to be around good men, God-fearing men that really challenge me to what it looks like to be a good soul. I never want to look over my shoulders. Once you make these declarations in your life about what kind of human you want to be, it's so easy then to just fall apart quickly. Like, it's one thing to announce them to the world. That's good. Another thing to set up systems and process, but another thing to be around people like like Matt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what you're driving at, it's a great segue for a question, because it demands humility. Because what you're aspirational, but you're having the humility to recognize, look, I'm flesh and bone. And unless whatever your system is, unless I deliberately on our prayer practice, the morning scripture, get into certain
that trigger's got to go off.
And a lot of people, and build in every week, I'm going to see a coach, or I'm going to get into this group or this Bible, and I'm just going to do it because I'm a human, and we tend to drift otherwise.
Tom Brady has coaches for every, like, if the best in class in the world have coaches for different domains in their life, what makes you think you're too good to not?
It's humility. It's not ambition. I don't think. I think it's humility. Because when you get into real deep, constant containers, you're just constantly, you're journaling in the airport or wherever you were, like, I'm going to own my downside. Right. Well, and I'm going to really look at it.
Momentum is a funny thing, because once you have it, Brandon will attest to us, I guarantee it, because now there's such demand for him that great people are now pulling him into their world. Yeah. I've started recently speaking, and one keeps leading to another. I get a text message yesterday, hey, I got this great event I want you to speak at. So naturally now I create enough momentum in my life and I'll credit all the systems and processes that got me here. Everything is systemized. I'm a rule-driven human, and I believe in rules and standards because I know I suck. Deep down, there's not a lot of talent here. I'm a regimented human.
James Clear says in Atomic Habits, you won't rise to the level of your ambitions. You'll fall to the level of your systems.
It's so true.
And I love that. It doesn't matter.
Look that up.
Rich people, poor people, successful people, broke people. Everybody has the same goals and dreams.
Exactly true.
But
what's the difference maker?
The difference is some people have systems
and processes for sure. But
once
you have the momentum, though, what's so great is you can compound it very easily, because now you're in a world where people that you once used to look up to are now pulling you in, and they see you as equals with them. And now you're just naturally always in the proximity of people that are constantly putting out good messages. To be in this space, it's like so fulfilling, and it's almost euphoric when you are the demand for you from people that you admire is being pulled towards you. But you have got to rise to that level. You have to become the thing. It has to be your identity. Only then will they see you as one, and then you're always in the right room. It's part of your DNA. It's part of your profession. It's part of how you create impact in the world, is by surrounding yourself with all these titans in their industries. Yeah. I'm always learning every week. I'm in some new room. Look at what we're doing today. Like, isn't this fucking cool? Like, this is amazing. Yeah. Like, this is a guy that has done so much actionable stuff in the world that would be a dream for anyone to put on their resume. And we're just chopping it up in this studio in Coeur d'Alene.
That's fun.
It's very cool, man. So again, like whoever's listening out there, there's always gold that you can extract. But again, where are people failing? They're failing in their rules, their systems, and their process. Like, let's identify the truth here.
Yeah.
Agreed?
That's so good. Yeah. So good.
What do you have your own like personal system outside of like business systems and rhythms, like your own, like when you fall away from it or whatever that is it like walking, prayer? What do you do? What's your thing?
Yeah. So a lot of what I do has been built off of, just trial and error and a lot of other people's systems. So none of this I'm about to say is mine, right? I took all this, but so I have this. I mentioned earlier, I have a nonprofit. We can talk about that, but it's called the Better Life Tribe, and the whole gist of it is like systems and processes and accountability around your entire life. And so it starts with I set vision for my life of where do I want to head in life. So I say, what does that look like? And I like to do something called identity-based goal setting. It's not goal setting based on what I want. It's based on who I want to become, right? So I want to be an incredible husband to my wife who's present, who's focused on her, who's loving to her, who gives her attention. That's who I want to be. Now I can set a goal on that, not a goal based on some other arbitrary thing, right? So I go from vision, which is based in identity, down to annual goals. I'm a big goal guy, so I'm annual goals, but I don't love annual goals. I'm a huge fan of that book, The 12-Week Year, which basically says annual goals are just too far away to make a big impact. So I take that to quarterly goals, right, or 12-week goals. So I've got a quarterly goal, and I typically have 3 of them. Those goals are lined up with the annual goal, which is lined up with the vision. So we're all in a line here. So, and those are typically, I'll give you an example, like one of my goals right now this quarter is to hit the gym or to get a workout in 50 times this quarter. It's basically like 4 times a week. And 3 of those in the week, or roughly 35 of them, have to be actually at the gym, and then another one each week could be pickleball or running or whatever, right? So that's just one of my goals. Then I take the goal for the quarter and I take it down to a list of 9 habits that I track. So every single morning I track my 9 habits. And I have everything from, did I work out? I'm doing this quarter, I'm doing something called a digital detox, where I set a couple rules, and I said, these are the rules that govern my detox. There's no phone after 7 p.m. There's no phone before 7 a.m. There is no like scrolling TikTok or Instagram this quarter. Like if I need to go post or I need to go check a DM, that's fine. So I set rules for myself, like you mentioned rules, and now I'm tracking that every single morning. This takes less than 30 seconds a morning. So I go through my 9 stuff and I say, did I do this yesterday? Did I read the Bible with my daughter in the morning? Check.
I love it.
Dash. And at the end of if I look at my week ahead, there's a score. There's actually a number, because I said I'm going to go to the gym, or work out 4 times. I'm going to read with Rosie 6 times. I'm going to go on a date with my wife 2 times. And I've got my 9 habits. The habits, of course, line up to the quarterly goal, which lines up to the annual goal, which lines up to the vision of my life, which lines up to the identity that I want to have. So if I keep that all in alignment, so now I've got the score. A perfect week would be, call it 41, I think is right now this quarter. 41 is a perfect score for my week. At the end of the week, I get a number. Again, 30 seconds every day, I get a number. 25, 28, 31, whatever the number is. And now I have a percentage. How am I doing? I've been doing this now solidly for about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. I have never hit above, call it 85%, ever. And I'm typically at like 60%, which goes to what I said when I was in Vegas and I was doing that journaling. I said, what the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I hit? Like I have given myself permission to sit at 50, 60% on my habits that I have defined will give me the life that I want. And I'm okay getting 50%. I'm okay with an F. Like what kind of man have I become? Giving myself an F. So I line all that up. And then the last piece of that is accountability. So every single week I meet with these 3 other dudes, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're tracking their habits. They have a number, a score, and I show them, here's my score, and we basically answer like a few questions. It's, what was my score last week? I show them that. I tell them, what did I do really well with? What did I struggle with on that score?
So good.
What did I commit to last week, and did I do it? And then what am I going to commit to this week? It's a very simple.
You writing all this down?
Yeah. So that entire process.
We tapped into something, guys. I don't know if you know. I just asked about rules, and here you went. Like he's so cavalier.
We're coaching.
I got something.
Yeah, this is
This fall we're coaching like 40, 50 entrepreneurs, and we've been working on accountability groups and pods and structure. So I'm like, say more.
Exactly. So all of this is what I took and I put into the Better Life Tribe.
Yes.
And then that thing, we give 100% of all profits to fight human trafficking.
So good.
That's incredible.
I don't even take a salary from that. Now, I will make $1 billion from ancillary things around that. If I can get
your brand, the relationships, the brand value.
The relationship, the brand value, all that, I will win many times over. But what's crazy about business, and this leads into the mission part.
Yeah.
What's crazy is that one, you and me, we are really freaking good at business. We can make money. We figure things out. If you lost everything today, a year from now, you'd be doing, you'd be a millionaire again, whatever. Like, you know who's not good at making money? Charities. They're just not good at it. Like, all they know how to do is
bureaucrats
beg.
In many cases.
Yes.
They're inefficient.
They're inefficient. They're terrible at it. They spend most of their time raising money. So I've got this belief that what if we took what I call capitalism fueled charity? And like you take capitalism, good business principles from good business people who understand how to make money. And
sustainability and efficiency.
Yep. And you create business in sustainable ways and you dump that money into charity so they can stop raising money. So like my vision, if you want to know my mission, is to fund all of the top like Operation Underground Railroad, Tim Tebow's foundation, the group called Aerial Recovery. Take the top 5 or 10 organizations in the country. I just want to, not single-handedly, because this is thousands of people, but I want the Better Life Tribe single-handedly to fund all of their operations.
Yeah,
and it doesn't take that much
to handle operations for 5 big ones.
So we handle all their costs, so they don't have to. They'll still raise money, but my vision is to make a business that's so freaking profitable, and then give all that profit to those companies so they can go out and do the things that they're going to do. Right. There's that story in the Bible about the talents, where like talent not meaning like your skills, but like the money. They call it a talent, right? And the master gives all his servants some money, and he says, "Here, go. I'll be back in a little while." Right? The first guy, he multiplies it, his 10, and turns it into another 10. The guy who's given like 3 takes it and gives 3. Yeah. The guy who was given 1, he buries it in the sand. Yeah. And when the master comes back, he's like, "What are you doing? You could have at least invested this money in a bank and got the interest and made some money out of it." And I once heard somebody talk about that and gave a sermon about it, and they said, there are people that are uniquely designed to be able to multiply money, like 10x money, and there are people that are getting their skill and then either A, afraid to do anything with it, so they bury it, or B, they spend it on themselves. Right. And so anyway, I'll shut up now, but my belief is that if I can get 10,000 people, we're at 1,000 right now. If I can get 10,000 people paying an average of $500 a month, that ends up being $60 million a year in revenue. We can operate that business on, call it less than $10 million easily, probably less than 5. Now we're giving away $50 million a year. That's only with 10,000 people, which means if we're pushing 50,000 people, which again, is that unreasonable? Not at all. There are a lot of people out there who could use habits and accountability and all that. And when I have a platform like mine and then the charity aspect of it, it should not be hard to get 50,000 people over the next decade. That's $250 million a year we'll be able to give away to fight human trafficking.
Yeah.
Like,
I love it.
So that should be the future of business. Every business should have a component
100%
that gives away that you build in. Now here's what I get to tell people. This is not why you do it. I love the identity. I can tie it into a lot of different things. Like there's 7-minute abs is fake. Yeah. Doesn't exist. And even with like something like 75
is that what I've been doing wrong? Jeez.
Well, I mean, this is the consumer nation, right? But this whole concept, even something like 75 hard, I know it kickstarts people, but the biggest problem is there's an end date. This is till you die, lifelong.
I lost 20 pounds and I gained in 75. I lost 20 pounds in 75 hard and I gained it back in 3 days.
I hear it every day. I hear this every day.
It was absurd. So and then I got worse off.
The work should be done on the rules for your life.
Yes.
Till you die.
Yep. Like I don't do diets that I won't do for the rest of my life.
Love identity, but if your identity as a business really brings this component in, not in your, because the reason I say identity is you don't do it for extra business.
You do it for its own sake.
You do it for its own sake, and it's because it's the identity of who you stand for. But the truth is, let me be the one to tell us, the universe will reward you. The universe will bring you business that inadvertently you wouldn't have if you're smart about how you communicate your message about impact to the world as it drives through the business down to a source. You actually get more business. Yep. Don't do it for that reason, though. Charity can't be a thing you do to try to get more. Yeah. But it should be a thing that's just natural. But at the end of the day, like the universe rewards people that are impact driven when it's their identity. And the market sees through fake anyway. So you can only run a racket for so long. Yeah. There's so many holes in people that are not what they claim to be. And even like if you say yes to someone, that is running a racket, like deep down, there was some spidey senses, there was some red flags. You felt it, you just said you'd ignored them. And a lot of people ignore the red flags in people, but at the end of the day, the market sees through fake. It'll see right the fuck through you. So you got to do this for its own sake, just like you said. And identity has got to be the reason behind the why's got to be so powerful that first it supersedes all your insecurities and all your self-doubt, so you can just do the action anyway. But then you need to do it for the sake of doing it. And if you can always stay grounded and humble and close to the cause, you should be able to be a billionaire that is a wonderful human, not some tyrant. Yeah. Because money and power is an evil fucking thing. And I want to rise by being connected to the pain and connected to the ground level. And that's why I think charity is such an important attribute. But you really got to believe in what you're doing and push through. It'll be the systems and the rules and processes that really set this tone for your life. I promise you. It's the only reason I'm here. I'm sure it sounds like it's that way for you too. I know it's that way for you. You know what I mean? Inadvertently, people have a bone structure that keeps them moving forward, and even when the universe tries to wipe them out. And when most people get wiped out, it becomes a downward spiral effect. When someone now cuts me off in the road, flips me off, and throws an egg at my car, my ability to pull back and not want to go kill that motherfucker and rise up with that blood pressure feeling in my throat, I can take a deep breath because I can trigger goes off of me, and I have a system on how to handle the guy that just cut me off. I realize that's the universe playing a chess move against me. It's my move now. Why would I want to go destroy my day or make a terrible decision or embarrass myself in front of my wife? Be some jackass. I want to be the guy that can rise above all that shit. I have to be playing a game. The game for me is the system. It's the process. It allows me to keep winning even when someone throws an egg at my face. Like, I don't need to respond. I don't know. No longer do I need to be mad at the TV. I mean, COVID really revealed something beneath the surface that we all see now. It's this dragon that was sleeping, and it exposed all of it. It really did. I mean, Trump had a lot to do with that because they hate him so bad that they exposed what was really there. But in my seeing of that, I got so upset with the TV. What am I doing? I didn't have a system or a process on how to handle that. Now I do. This platform is my process. I can pour heart and soul through this microphone into the universe, and it's this energy that I steal from that and I give to that. It's a process. It's a system. And look what's happening. Opportunities now everywhere. And I'm happier because I can't control that. And I don't even know if it's true. But I can't control this. I can control this shit. And this is where the magic of systems and process. Anything in your life you don't like about you, you can fix it. You can fix it with a system or a process. This is a game that we get to play. We are so lucky. We get to do this life. And this is the magic of having these conversations. Like, you can't, I mean, this is gold. You should be having them every day.
One thing you bring to mind, Eric, for people, both of you, to go back to what you're saying and linking it to the talents. I was reading that gospel not long ago, and it occurred to me, like, the landowner or whomever gave different levels to different people. And the lesson, I was like, it never really, it's a simple thing, but it just hit me, like, we're just to be a steward with whatever we're given. We're only accountable to that. So if you're given 5, great. If you're given 3, great. If you're given 1, just be a steward of that. That's all we have to handle. And like, so... Well, to have like a grand vision, but all you, like, to young people, whatever season, if you're midlife and you've had a big fall, really just be a steward of that day, that opportunity, that one, and just steward that, and your life is handled. Like, give it to God, steward that one opportunity, that 2 and then it just stacks. But
it's a good mindset.
There's no, you didn't hear in the scripture that the guy who got 3 talents was jealous of the guy who got 5 and sold out. It's just like it doesn't work that way. And that's a mystery. Call it karma, call it God, whatever your faith orientation. People are you're 6'5".
Yeah, I'm
what are you 5'10"? Yeah, whatever. Like,
let me just say I'm 5'10". I'm not 5'2". I'm 5'10". Everyone,
which is the average height for America. I heard that's average height.
I'm an average dude. Okay, no question about it.
He's the happiest steward of that talent.
I very much am. I very much am. Brandon, what do you think is wrong with America?
Great question. Pivot.
What do I think is wrong with America?
What's wrong with America? What's the biggest problem?
The Western world.
What's the biggest problems we face?
The Western world is sitting in their palace watching girls bathe on rooftops.
Oh, so true.
Right? The entire Western world is sitting on the rooftop while their armies are at war. Meaning there is massive poverty in the world. There's sex trafficking, there's pain, there's war, and Americans are sitting there just watching
Consuming.
Dancing with the Stars, oblivious. They don't care
It's
because
like
they're
Roman
so good. They already won.
It's like the Coliseum. They just bring the lion seat to people and they're cheering
they're
at the
just cheering
entertainment.
at it. They don't care. Yeah, Americans don't care because so instead we're sitting there fighting about pronouns and about Trump and about Biden and about everything else because we have no real problems anymore. Like we just have our biggest problem is like that I don't know which bathroom to use when I go to Walmart. Right? It's like,
and this is a deep. I think this is. I love it. So
here we go. Because I just was like, okay, how does this end?
No, I was like, I'll take it one place, but I think like it's like an abstract thought. But one way I heard it in a different context. Picture the Roman Colosseums. I've heard it put this way, like they would do thumbs up if they wanted the gladiator to die or to live, right? So they're watching this lion and bear, and they have this slave, and then they go, "What do you want, crowd?" And the crowd's like, So here's what I want to say: when we're, and not to like overly, but still like the individual man consuming pornography at home or just idling his time, you in some small way are now accountable for the engine of sex trafficking or the 100%. Or the decline of the West. So every individual matters profoundly. And when you adopt you don't see the immediate impact of this, you take it on faith. When you adopt that, like everything I say, how I hold my time, my way of being, was I totally honest with that remark? Did I omit a thing? It's like, has impact on real lives.
So good.
And
you have to reveal the racket.
It's down to the individual, man. I mean, there's a collective answer to what's wrong with the West, but you nail it. It's like we're all individually David, because look, mankind didn't have air conditioning 50 decades ago. If you're poor today, you got potato chips, you got a screen, you got your phone,
you got your Nikes,
and you're idle. You're just, and you're accountable. You're accountable. So we're all accountable.
Yeah. I like what Dwight Schrute on The Office. Now, I don't believe this, but I love this line. He says, "We need another plague." I love that line. I'm
Lord, please keep that a joke. I don't want a plague.
But I get it. I get the sentiment behind it.
What's the? Do you remember after?
We gotta weed this shit out.
Yeah. Do you remember after 9/11?
Eric's like, "Where's the plague? Kill
After 9/11, like America united in this crazy, interesting way where everyone was like on board. Now there was a lot of 9/11 led a lot of other weird things happen, but that was a moment because all of a sudden we had a challenge as a country, it united us in a way that hasn't been. And then COVID did the exact opposite for whatever reason.
Well, politics
tore everyone apart.
Politics played a role here in a way that it didn't then.
Yeah,
this, you know what I mean. And this was it felt manufactured at some point through it. It felt like this was on purpose, and that's a sad thing.
And maybe that's why it didn't unite us, because nobody actually believed it was a challenge.
When you can't trust the truth anymore, everything changes. And that really begs this next question for me, because the dragon that revealed itself, that really was underneath the hood, when you start tracing back, and I love that you're a student of history, because I want to ask you this question. You look at history and all over the world, all the different cultures. You look at the excesses of capitalism. I think what we're basically talking about here. As good as capitalism is, there is some problems with it, and it's the excess of it that detaches us from the murder and the pain in the world. You know what I mean? Like that's why when you go to a third world country, you go to Africa, that's a different type of poverty. Yeah. Like this is a whole different beast. But the reality is when you look at history, freedom is very new. It's a very new concept. America is not a country. It was an idea. It was something so much different than land or people. It was something that had never happened before. And we really set the tone for a way to do life differently that created all this excess, which is great. It's comfortable, right? Yeah. We get to go pursue our greatest dreams. I get to be on a podcast. Like I make money doing this shit. Like this is crazy, right? Like this isn't reality. It's like we're living in no man's land, but we are using what we have to try to impact a better message, how deep can you go with the tools and resources around you? I mean, that's what great entrepreneurs do, but only in America does a true entrepreneur even exist. Yeah. Because it had to be gifted to you in other ancient societies all the way. You were either born into it or you were a slave to it. But you only had two options. And there was different levels to this too, but this whole monarch concept was the reality of the world. So America being a new concept, what I think is I see it moving back to that, where the people have less and less power, and they're happening right in front, and people are willing to give it up so quick.
Yep.
Where we literally fought wars to have the power of the people in charge, and now it seems like it's going the exact opposite way you think it should, where people don't retain the power and grow with it. They actually they're shrinking from it. It's almost like it peaked and it got off. And I just think it's like evil and light. Wherever there's good, there's going to be evil. And wherever there's light, there's got to be darkness. There has to be these two countries, just like capitalism. Wherever there's capitalism and freedom, there's going to be an evil force trying to take it over. They can't exist without one another. And so the bigger question is really, it's like, what does this look like in the next 100 years? Or how does this end?
Yeah.
And we know how it ends historically. How does it end historically? Let's ask that question. It always ends in a revolution. Yeah. It always ends in some very traumatic reset where the people rise. Because at the end of the day, the people are so much more powerful than the collective few, the pigs at the animal farm that are at the top of the food chain. Like you start getting the workhorses together and the cows together and the bulls together. Like you just bomb the fucking village and the farm and you kill all the pigs. And I'm not suggesting that, but it's a metaphor for the reality for how history is played out over and over again. So I'm convinced of one thing. The Constitution, since you're a history buff, got one thing right. And it was that the people can protect themselves. Yeah. The right to bear arms has nothing to do with protection of your neighbors. It has protection to do from the government that has enslaved people for fucking centuries. That's the whole point of it. And that's the one thing holding them back from really going for broke. It is going to be very hard to rip across every community in America and try to exert the power they want because of that. So it's going slower and slower away, and it's getting more and more tense, and the divide is getting bigger and bigger. For me, the only way to save it really is to empower as many people, have as many normal humans that are good men and good women step up to the plate. Right now, start making some noise. Like part of the other mission of why I'm here, what's beneath the surface, is that when this understanding, when good men do nothing is when evil triumphs. And I think there's still enough good men in the world where you can overwhelm the system. But unfortunately, we don't have pop culture. We don't have Hollywood on our side. We don't have education system on our side. Higher learning is a fucking travesty. It's an indoctrination center where they teach you how to be victims and they teach you how to hate someone else based on things that they have that they work for that you don't have. Exactly. This is all on purpose. This is my point. It's all by design. And the media, the most important thing is there's not a lot of voice boxes of the world that give. So if you have 1,000 Brandon Turners in the world that are good men rising, 1,000 Eric Rocks, 1,000 whoever's, doesn't matter, woman, female, it doesn't matter, all of that. This is where hopefully you can rise up in sort of the backdrop of the Second Amendment. And when all the noise, maybe you can readjust some shit somehow, some way. Maybe the reset happens there instead of where we know it probably should end up historically. Yeah. I don't know, any thoughts to that? Because this is a profound conversation. Yeah. And it's so much deeper than making money and like living your best dreams in life. Being able to communicate this, I think is important. Being able to know the truth and make that how you make decisions. The barometer of how you interact with the world should be based on truth. And we have gotten so far away from truth, and that is what is so scary. And like, what is the truth? Like, that's it. I love being wrong. I will admit it. I will lay down. I will apologize. But I will go where I think my truth is. And I think, the reality is like if something can be blatantly square and someone's telling you it's circle right in front of your eyes. And then if you say it's a circle, they call you a racist. This is all the weapons they use to silence you. Yeah. They call you a bigot. Now it's like, oh man, now we're teaching little kids how to do very weird things with their genitalia. Like we're putting these bizarre topics in these poor little children, innocent children's mindsets. That's fucking bizarre. Think about what's happening. Yeah. And you're being told that you're a hateful human if you just want your child to grow up with innocence being the dominating force for how we communicate. So I think beneath the surface of every great man out there should have this conversation just to like really put it in the audience's mindset that like, listen, we're fighting something right now. There's got to be a powerful why behind what you're doing. Like at the end of the day, the pain that's coming and the pain that's already here, like I think it's compounding more and more and more. And this was the why behind this whole concept for me. I'm sure there has to be a piece of this, and all of you guys too, somehow deep in there. But you being a history person, I'd love to just pass the ball off to you right now. I know it's heavy, guys, but this should be happening.
Yeah. So, I was a history major in college, and I studied a lot. I'm no scholar, but I studied a lot of like modern, like the last 100 years was basically like my gist. Gotcha. World War I, World War II. Okay. I can't think of one example in history where a group of people without any weapons were excited about that. You know what I mean? Like that when they got taken over. Like nobody. It sounds when everyone's bathing on the roof in the palace and everything's going really calm and easy, and nice. It's really easy to say, we don't need guns. We don't need all this aggression. We don't need toxic masculinity. Yeah, we don't need the alpha men. Like it's really good because we're at peace. And when things are at peace, you don't need that. So what peacetime makes weak people, right? We're definitely in that phase right now. But even if you look at just the current like Ukraine stuff, like the same people who are out there saying that we shouldn't have guns in America and we need to get rid of them are the ones saying that we need to give the Ukrainians guns. So why do they need the guns in Ukraine? To fight an oppressive government. Now, again, I don't know which side is going to win or which side's right or wrong. I think it's not super messy. It's not the point. Is when when the shit hits the fan, the people need something to fight back. They need it, and all of a sudden, then everyone's okay with it. And it's like, well, why don't we just apply that logic to today? Yeah. And
what a great singular point that is. It's such a simple point.
Yeah.
People like what would happen to the Jews if they were armed the way Americans are today in America?
Correct. Yeah.
I think a lot of it's stunning if you look at the last.
Come get my children.
The last 3 or 4 decades, right? We haven't educated on history. I mean, that's speaking of history. None of us are claiming to be scholars on it.
Our instincts.
I'm a big Churchill fan. Read different history books, but. The last 3 or 4 decades, it's been mostly indoctrination, and the humanities, the Western canon of history hasn't even been. You can ask young people. I love all those reels out there. They're depressing. They're funny and depressing when you see all the reels. People, they go around asking basic things.
Oh yeah, to college kids and all that.
And you just reveal
it's sad.
The era we're in. It's like wow. I mean, and then of course you forgive them. They know not what they do. They're that person literally has no clue. No,
they don't know history.
And you see the intrinsic innocence in the young person. So it's like
there's a reason you burn books in these regimes of where power is a dominating force, and communism and this whole idea of government knowing how to control your life better than you. There's a reason they destroy facts and history, and there's a reason they control the media. It's the first place you go. I mean, Saul Alinsky wrote a book called Rules for Radicals that really explained in detail on how to destroy society, and it played out in real time over the last 50 years. Like literally, we are living inside the reality of the outcome of what that book was supposed to do.
He dedicated that to Lucifer.
He did.
And that was Hillary Clinton's I've heard it framed this mentor. Way, like that we experience a Luciferic conversion where you take anything that's traditionally good and beautiful, and you invert it. Yep. So, the traditional family, you poo-poo it, you do a make wrong on it. A businessman, you poo-poo it, you do a make wrong on it. Anything that's been traditionally good is now inverted in the modern populace and the indoctrinated. And people, I think, prey on the heart of people because... forgive them. They don't know what they do because the earnest. When I remember arguing with my dad like at 19. I remember some of the stupid shit I yelled at my dad. Sure. Like I just remember like 19 or 20, all impassioned. Yeah. And I'm like, man. Now I still disagree with my dad on a lot of things in politics, but I wouldn't have even made those utterances. And I could see in my I'm 48, in my indoctrinated, didn't know any better 20-year-old self. I was so idealistic. And wrong.
Well, I think I think there's the big difference between like I'm gonna call it left and right because I think you see it on both sides, but like we'll just call it idiots and morons and intellectual people,
ideologues and balanced people or whatever.
There's this. If you look at all of human history, it has been these peaks and valleys of like peacetime and then chaos and peace and chaos and peace and chaos for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Always just happens, right? I mean, just in the modern, like 100 years ago, it's like World War I, then things got better, and then it got bad into World War II again, and then it was like, Vietnam, and like all of human history has been that way, except for the last 50 years in America, right? So in America in the last 50 years, we've had it really good. And so either there's two possible scenarios. I think half of the US believes that this cycle has been finally broken. And we are now out of it. We are now more modern. We're now not slaughtering each other. We understand things. We're more patient. Like the internet, whatever caused it, but
humans
we are now
advanced.
Yeah, we've advanced, and now this pattern that's been for thousands of years is now going up into the right forever. And so therefore we don't need the old rules that functioned in here. The rest of us are looking at it going, no, we just happen to be here. That's what everyone thinks when they're at the peak. Like we could go back. I mean, it was less than 100 years ago even America, they were doing crazy things, but it was less than 100 years ago, we were throwing people in ovens. Like, that's insane. That's less than 100 years ago. We were murdering little kids, and that's not that far. Like, we have not evolved. We've not changed. We just are, we hide it better. And inside, and and even, you could say 100 years ago, we were putting people in those situations. This year, we are putting people in ovens in other countries. I'm sure they are murdering people left and right all across the world. We are murdering.
What's crazy is slavery is worse today than ever. Was.
Yeah.
And that's a really important fact that like if you're living the good life, you're so far from the reality of what that means. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was in Mexico and just thinking about last time I was out late. We're doing something downtown, like, you know, it's like 2 a.m, like just a late, and this one, and there's a little girl on the street corner. I'll never forget this. And at the time, it didn't hit me to what's going on. But I remember thinking, why is there a little girl, tiny, cutest little angel out there? And she's selling wristbands. There's some odd woman standing next to her. Like, now that I think back to countless places I've been, like, what was the reality of that little girl?
Yeah.
What was really going on there? Who was that woman that was standing next to her? Like, little girls don't hang outside of nightclubs in Mexico with bracelets at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning. Like, come on, man. This is not a reality. You think about how slavery exists in other countries and how they view human life. Like, it's everywhere. But we are in our palaces at the top, so disconnected from it. And like, you know, sex trafficking, for America to be the biggest consumers of it in the world, I mean, if there is validity behind that, like just assume that there is. Let's take it from the people that live and breathe this shit every day, that are dedicated their lives to it. We have dear friends that are literally dedicated their lives to this, all of us in this room. So I'm going to take their advice and facts here. Like, this is terrible. It's tragic. And again, like, what do you do? Well, you don't get mad at the TV, like most people. You go out in the marketplace and you leave a mark. Yeah. You do something. You communicate. You at least raise your voice and stand for something. But people are so scared to stand for the truth these days. And I think that's probably one of the biggest identifying marks that has been apparent to me, is that wherever the truth is, like, people may say it in quiet, but they don't get out in front of it in public. And now, but again, now media is against you. Big tech's against you. They'll silence you if you say anything that they don't like. They'll blacklist you. They'll put you down. Like, this is a dangerous conversation right here. But again, do you think that means we shouldn't go near it? Or should we face it head on and deal with what consequences there are? Like, I have to consider always for my businesses. You know, we have retail businesses. Like, am I communicating something that's going to hurt my businesses just because I decided to tell my truth and my perspective? But you think that's stopping me? Does it look like it's fucking stopping me? Like, I made a choice that I'm going to stand for truth. And if you're going to do that, you have to do it everywhere.
Yeah.
I want to inspire this in everybody.
As we discern it to the best of our ability. That's all you could ask yourself.
If you're wrong, you're wrong. But admit it. You know, I don't need to be right. But I used to love debate. What happened to debate? The days of debate. Yeah. They forced me to debate in high school. And I'll never forget, the teacher wrote a letter, and I thought she hated my guts. She would put me against the whole class. And I always loved to talk, but she would put me against the class, and she wrote this beautiful letter to my parents about me, I was the brightest student she'd ever seen. I thought I was dumb as fuck, but I just loved to argue, you know what I mean? But it was beautiful. I remember I actually got a lot out of the debate class, but this lady was so hard on me. She was the hardest teacher ever. Mrs. Landrum was her name. She was so hard on me, and she wrote the most beautiful fucking letter. Awesome. But what happened to debate? We can't even... debate's what makes America so great, and it's being silenced. Debate is not it's not allowable anymore. They won't put out information that's true, and you can't debate even that fact without being silenced on social media.
And it takes psychological maturity to have a debate. I mean, I'll acknowledge at 48, I could have a conversation with. I totally disagree with someone now, but at 29, I would have gotten too impassioned, or I would have subtly tried to control them, or they'll do a make wrong. Like, I'm just more.
No, the art of debate is dying.
The art of being emotionally at ease with divergent opinions, respecting people.
Yeah, even debates. Like, if you look at people are probably listening and going, "Well, no, what are you talking about?" There's debates on TV all the time. You watch, like, the political debates. I'm like, that's not a debate.
That's not a debate.
That's a show.
You're right.
Like,
it's totally a show.
Yeah, they're a show answering the questions they want to answer the way they want to answer it, and they're doing a show, and it's a little dance, and
it's a game, and we're all watching the numbers of the game.
You know what's funny is I got a little bit of a look under the hood, like, just because of my relationship with my business partner in the world of politics, and again, like, he sued the governor of Nevada. Like, he was in that world, big money going around. But I've been on, Gulfstream jets, like, with politicians on the plane. But I've sort of gotten this instinctual look behind the scenes. These are all scammy fuckers. They're all handshaking. They're all good friends after. They may hate each other in public, the left and the right. But behind closed doors, these are deep-rooted people that are all making money on the system. They're all, like, winking at each other. Yeah. It's a weird feeling. It's almost like a mutual respect they have for what they're both doing, and they don't care. It's not like you think it would be. You think that these people, based on the politics, would hate each other like the people. They're all running a racket, and they're all laughing all the way to the bank. not all of them, but they're just in general, the art of politics now is like, like pay no attention to what's happening behind the screen.
Emperor has no clothes on.
Yeah. But again, like this is the instinct that for me personally, and I hope that is in everyone else is stand up. Like, don't lay down to this shit.
That's a good segue, because this man has stood up. I mean, you've been a steward of your gifts and 100%. Opportunities, and for people who want to check out your investment group is Open Door Capital, but also it's the Better Life Tribe. Yep, that's his answer. Yeah.
Like
that's his stand up from the TV
of lives.
And the way you've structured that.
Go try.
Yeah. What what would you want to say about that, or people wanted to check out more, learn more about either Open Door Capital or Better Life Tribe?
Yeah, man. So we do real estate. We raise money, like I think you said in the introduction. We've raised somewhere around $300 million, all from just regular people. So, 401ks and awesome. Self-directed IRAs and just normal people. I'm very much like trying to like be the people's investor. Like you can invest on your own, or you can invest with our company. Yeah. We'll give you the majority of the profits. It's kind of a cool model. So we find big stuff, so they can check out odcfund.com. ODC, Open Door Capital, odcfund.com, and that's the big one there. And then Better Life, it's just, you can Google Better Life Tribe, but it's abetterlife.com. Cool. Yeah, man, I'm just trying to blow both those things up. And it's fun, like you said earlier. A lot of it's the game, it's the climb. Yeah. Simon Sinek has a book called The Infinite Game, and it's like when you have a finite thing you're playing, like a mountain you're trying to climb, you get to the top, you're like, oh, well, what do I do now? Like I'm sure we both know people who have sold a business.
It's now a problem.
Yep, yeah. And then even people who sell businesses or companies, and they're like, now what? Like now I'm just bored, and they wander aimlessly for years. And so Simon Sinek talks a lot about the infinite game, was how do you play games that have no end? And like fighting human trafficking, there's no end to that game. Like I can fight that for the rest of my life.
Or even, I love what you said about a Better Life Tribe, an identity to become something great.
Yeah. Because I'll never become the person that I could become.
That you aspire to.
I'll never become that.
You can get closer and closer.
Yeah, you can get closer all the time.
Yeah, he's a shadow away.
Yeah, there he is.
He's reaching out for us. Yeah. What's crazy is this conversation could have gone 10 more hours. The one thing that we didn't do in this conversation, and actually I think with us, we just get so deep and raw and heartfelt that it's easy to stay where we're at. But the amount of practical knowledge that this gentleman sitting to my right puts out in the universe is insane. If you want to learn, follow Brandon.
He pours it out.
Thanks.
We didn't go there today. We could have stole every second of this with just solid practical advice, like legitimate stories where he's like literally weaving in and out of exactly the how-tos to do what he did. He gives it all away. I found the best people do. They give it away for free. They pour it out to the world. And if you want to know more and you want to dig in, there's always options to get closer to him. But he's giving so much good content away for free. You really should be following him, because I've learned a ton, and I know that. This is the game. You always want to absorb and then go apply it in the marketplace. Absorb, apply it in the marketplace, and just have systems, rules, and process, and you'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks, guys. This is awesome. It was awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
That was a fantastic interview. Like Eric said, you could dive deep with Brandon on practicality, and if you want to check out a Better Life Tribe, I'm totally going to look deeply into that for the coaching groups we facilitate, or check out Open Door Capital. Again, Brandon Turner, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thank you.
I'm a man on a mission.